School district cancels opening classes after teachers stage a sit-in to protest. For their next trick, let's hope they masquerade as competent educators for a change. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and we're sick of the sick-outs already. This is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today, we start in Arizona, where a school district was forced to cancel classes after more than 100 teachers called in sick to protest safety in the classroom as a result of COVID-19. Now, at this school, there were about 210 teachers or so, 220, so almost half of them called in sick. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to stop calling American public teachers teachers, because the one thing they don't seem to want to do is teach. They want to engage in activism. They want to become social, emotional caregivers for your children. They want to dabble in psychology and sociology. And now they want to use your kids as hostage for their protests. Whether it's walking out of the classroom, red for red to get raises and abandoning kids in the middle of a semester, or it's this, right? When moms and dads and kids are ready to go back to school, the brave ones, the moms, they're the moms and the dads and the kids. And the moms and the dads trust that those kids can go back to your schools, and you bail. I mean, you're professional hostage takers is all you are. Let's get over this. You're highly paid union stooges who hold American children hostage to all sorts of left-wing activism. Can we just call it what it is? Maybe the progressives were right. Maybe we should get rid of the word teacher. Facilitator is too creepy. Let's just call you what you are, hostage takers.
That's 2 words, though.
Hostagers?
Hostagers. Well, this happened at the J.O. Combs Unified School District, and their superintendent, Gregory A. Wyman, released a statement saying, "We received an overwhelming response from staff indicating that they do not feel safe returning to classrooms with students." Maybe they just wanted to return to the classroom without the students and get paid for it. In response, we have received a high volume of staff absences for the Monday, which was opening day, back to school, first day of kids, especially the kindergartners, first time going to school. They're probably traumatized. Anywho, citing health and safety concerns. Due to these insufficient staffing levels, schools will not be able to reopen on Monday as planned. And yet, the future of the school year remains unknown.
They call themselves, notice what they say, "We have received a high volume of staff absences citing health concerns." That's not a sick day. Dock their pay. You ought to, they won't. In fact, if they were docking their pay, they wouldn't be doing this. So they're not, rather than being sick, rather than having a illness, they're saying, "I'm concerned that I might get sick." How? You're dealing with children who are petri dishes to begin with. When can't you say that? When aren't kids a threat?
When they're not at school.
Right.
When they're at home alone.
Exactly. So maybe you should just go and try to get a job at an online teaching school. Just don't apply to us at Freedom Project.
Well, and on top of this, it's not even that okay, they don't feel safe in the building, so let's do our backup plan, which they should all have 15 different backup plans at this point. No, they wouldn't even do virtual learning. All virtual learning would also be canceled.
Of course.
And there are 600 employees roughly in the entire district. About 250 are teachers, and of those, it was 109. They said certified staff had been put in for the absences.
So in this country now, under Democrat leadership across the from various states to states, teachers unions are all liberals. The states where you're seeing the worst violence are almost always exclusively liberal states. What we're seeing is it's okay to break the law without consequence. It's okay to burn, loot, and riot without having to pay a price for it. It's okay now to come into this country illegally and then immediately be handed all the benefits of citizenship. And according to the schools now, it's okay to be public schools teachers and not teach kids because you want to make a political statement about COVID. That's what you're doing, whether you know it or not. And so the kids are on their own again. I would simply say to you, Mom and Dad, they're not going to fix this. The public schools are not going to amend themselves. If you're outraged by this in Arizona, guess what? They don't care about your outrage. They're going to get paid no matter what they do. They're going to be protected by their union no matter what they do. Your kids are the last things on the mind of these teachers. So maybe it's time for you to get out of those systems. It is completely everything it's like Bizarro world. Everything that you would expect a teacher-student relationship to be has been utterly transformed to the exact opposite because of all of this left-wing theoretical garbage.
And on top of that, so, you're not going to send your kids to school because it's so dangerous, right? But mom and dad, what are you supposed to do? Well, do you put them in daycare? Well, I'm North Carolina. They have a solution for you. We can now, at least for the Durham public schools, you can send your kid to a learning center, one of 6 learning centers that they're going to have. So families can send their kids, and hey, it only costs you $140 a week plus a $35 registration fee. So you're looking at, $560 a month plus that $35 registration fee to send your kids to school, but not school. Because we can't call it that.
Yep. So the schools won't take them, but you're going to rent buildings and put effectively teachers, daycare administrators in charge of giving your kids some kind of an education. That's okay, but you're going to have to pay more. All the property taxes you pay to keep your Arizona schools open, you're going to keep paying them. North Carolina, they're not going to let you go back to the schools you already paid for and the teachers that have already been paid. Now you can go to these what are effectively breakout day camps, right? Where maybe you'll get some graham crackers and chocolate milk for your $140 a week plus $35 registration fee. $35 registration fee. Literally what they're doing to you is they're giving you school under different names, and this is the dangerous thing. We mentioned this earlier in the week when we talked about this. What this allows them to do is to give you a version of school that you're actually paying extra for that now can be even less like school. If you think on these little daycare centers that they're going to be getting a lot of math and science and reading, forget it. But they are going to get all the social emotional wellness. They are going to get all the sexual education. They're going to get all the propaganda. So you think about what you're doing, Mom, in North Carolina, in Durham. You've already paid for the teachers and you already paid for the schools. Now you're sending them to fake schools with fake teachers to get fake education, and you're paying $500 and something a month on top of what you paid before to get less actual learning and more garbage from the schools.
And the thing is, these learning centers are actually at the public elementary schools. They're just calling them learning centers. And as they said, they will provide a safe space to complete online learning, meals and snacks, and social emotional activities. They will be assigned to small pods with daily wellness screenings, distribution and required use of face masks, and planned circulation and seating of 6 feet social distancing.
It's not online school if you go to the school to do it online. If you go to the school for online education, why can't you go to the school for education? That's like saying we're going to have real school at home. We're going to have the public school is simply going to transfer to the home. So everybody goes to their home and learns virtually, and we call that public school. This is literally the kind of double speak, group speak nonsense that your schools are engaging in.
And DPS Superintendent Pascal Mubenga says it will take a community effort to support each of these children. But DPS is doing its part.
Long as the money keeps flowing to the teachers' unions, none of this is going to change. It's not going to change, Mom and Dad. So you got to be the change. In the words of Democrats yesterday at the convention, be the change you envision. Pull your kids out of these rat traps.
Since you brought up the convention, the Democrats are holding their national convention, nominating Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris as the VP. And so on the college campus, we wanted to get the opinions. What do you think of Kamala Harris? Because now she just, became named as the VP candidate with Joe Biden. And it appears that, they're not so fond of her, we'll say. I guess Eduardo Nerette, who is in full COVID-19 lockdown mode out there in California, he's with Campus Reform. He actually went out and talked to these college kids, and they had some opinions about Kamala Harris.
Who do you think said that young people are stupid?
I'd have to go for Trump or Pence.
Probably Donald Trump.
Sounds like something the president would say.
I feel like it'd be like Trump.
What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid. That is why we put them in dormitories, and they have a resident assistant. They make really bad decisions.
The irony, that may be the only honest thing that Kamala Harris has for the rest of her public career. She's right. They are stupid. We have groomed young people to be children when it comes to serious issues until they're 40. And meanwhile, we've sexualized little children as if they were 40 years old. So she's exactly right. They are stupid. But it's you, Kamala Harris, and all of your progressive cohorts who've made them that way. You've made them stupid so you can manipulate them. And does it surprise anybody, as we look at the rest of this video, we have another video coming, does it surprise anybody when you actually watch the whole video that not a lot of people are changing their vote? That these kids have been insulted by Kamala Harris. They all thought it was Trump, right, which gave them another reason to hate Trump. They find out it's Kamala. Well, most of them are still voting for Biden and Kamala anyway.
Well, that's the life of our political life. You find out someone said something bad, but then you find out who said it, and then it determines if they're canceled or if it's like, oh, it's just Bill Clinton.
Which proves that kids that age are stupid. Because what happens is that these kids...
So is the media, so are the politicians,
exactly.
so are the
but we've
professors.
We've been doing this kind of education for 50 years. Yeah. So it doesn't surprise me that it's the 24-year-old, the 44-year-old, the 64-year-old are more or less the same now. But it proves their stupidity, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. That, okay, you immediately assume it's Donald Trump because you've been told to assume that. You find out it's not, and your response is, oh, well, orange guy bad anyway. That's stupid. You may be right. Maybe Trump's evil. Maybe you're right. Maybe Kamala is the dromedary savior of the country. Nevertheless, that's a stupid way to think and argue and reason things out. But that's what they do. And we've got more evidence for this.
Yeah, so Eduardo, again, went out and he asked them, okay, well, when we take a look at the VP pick and the president pick and all that, do you think it would be an appropriate or inappropriate choice for a vice president, to have maybe some law enforcement background? Because we all know about how everyone feels about the law enforcement right now.
Do you think it's the right time for people who are currently in law enforcement or previously to be seeking these positions of power right now?
Oh, definitely not the time. Completely inappropriate.
I think it takes a lot of nerve for people to be doing that, if I'm going to be honest. Like, for law enforcement, as of right now, as I said, there's so many other people in the world that have different opinions and will make the world so much better place.
Given a lot of backlash and injustices that have been revealed, I don't think it's the right time for law enforcement officers to be seeking to solidify or expand their positions.
There needs to be a general consensus where the African American community feels safe, they feel respected, they feel heard. I don't know, it could be 6 months, it could be 3 months, it could be a couple years, who knows? Until that happens, I don't think law enforcement has any place or jurisdiction to get into those positions of power.
Isn't it nice when you're a liberal, you can be a pasty white male and pop off about what African Americans need? This is the disconnect with progressivism. White people are evil, but once you sign on and put your little checkbox by the progressive voting ballot, you realize what a cliche you are? Having said that, this is what you get from progressive politics. I remember when I was a kid, the big thing were presidential candidates ever serving in the military? We used to respect that, right? Can you be the commander-in-chief if you haven't been in the military? Then we get Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, and we get, God help us, Barack Obama. And now, can you imagine if we actually had an ex-military president candidate right now? They would be all over that. Because the military is clearly worse than the police. The police just kill American black people. The military kills black people all over the world, right? And so we're in a situation now where these idiots, despite the fact that 99% of police officers never engage in this, are racially or professionally stereotyping these people. And they had that one African-American girl, and she sounded like she had a foreign accent. She was, there's people who why would we have police officers when the other people who will do so much better for the world? Really? Somebody who gives their lives every day or risks their lives every day to save other people? Those people cannot be relied on because less than 1% of them do bad things? Hint, the percentage of African Americans who do nasty things is much higher than 1%. Much higher. If you're going to condemn the cops for what less than 1% of cops do, shouldn't you condemn Kamala Harris or any other black presidential candidate because 15-20% of the African American community, it's really higher than that, engages in crime and violence? Really?
Well, and the thing is, these kids forget that when you say law enforcement, it's not just cops. It's not just the police officers. Law enforcement includes attorneys general, like Kamala Harris from California, and they don't put any of that together. And when your point about, picking a presidential candidate who served in the military, they had Pete Buttigieg. They could have had Tulsi Gabbard, but no, we had to focus on the other things with them, not their military service. We had to downplay that.
And the other big problem with all of this is that was what you're seeing here. This idea that all these candidates, this political correctness run amok. Let's not forget, it's not just cops and attorneys generals who are police officers, but technically Congress is. They make the laws that are being enforced by police officers.
Well, and how many of them are lawyers, so they're in the realm of all of it together.
That's right. I mean, again, if you're a lawmaker in this country, that included Kamala she was a senator, right? But think about all the congressmen. What they're really doing is making the laws that are being enforced by police officers. So if you don't like the laws that police are enforcing, aren't you as much of a problem as the cops themselves? The cops just enforce what you do. All these drug laws that put black people in jail. It's not the police who made those laws.
As we know, all civilized discourse happens on Twitter. That's where it all lives. It doesn't happen anywhere else. All civilized discourse, it's on Twitter. And so the world's problems are solved there, including math problems, where we have math professors and educators who have started a little debate on the Twitter to examine if math is racist. And we've talked about this many a time before, but they keep just bringing this Tang argument back up. And so the argument was actually rooted in George Orwell's 1984, and it's, the book about a totalitarian state. Everyone's mind is controlled, essentially. So at one point in the book, they talk about how 2 + 2 = 5, naturally. And so, according to Lori Rubel, she says that, she's a math teacher at Brooklyn College, she says the idea of math being culturally neutral is a myth, and that asking whether 2 + 2 = 4 reeks of white supremacist patriarchy.
Math is mythological now, and for the left, mythology is truth. So the mythology that Black Lives Matter isn't about Marxism, isn't about rioting, that Black Lives Matter isn't about opportunism, it's not ignoring the real problems in the black communities, much of which stem from black behavior. That's the myth, right? That Colin Kaepernick and Black Lives Matter are this wonderfully virtuous, incredibly innocent group of persecuted, in Kaepernick's case, multimillionaires who just can't get a fair shake in whitey's culture. The new mythology is truth to the left. The mythology that every woman's been raped, that every unborn child is not a living thing, that the new mythology, all of it completely factually inaccurate, all of it without any data, all of it scientifically wrong, that the men can be boys and women can be boys, all of that now, that mythology is truth, but math and science, the empirical method, reason and logic, all of those things that created the civilization that has given so much to so many, that's now just mythology.
Yes, and you must remember that this Lori Rubel, again, she teaches math education at Brooklyn College, which means she's teaching
math.
Well, she's teaching your future math teachers to go out and put out.
And what is she teaching them? More algebra?
No.
She's teaching them more
2
sociology.
2 equals whatever you want it to be. Well, a former educator also tweeted about how the U.S. colonizes math. By now, it is well known, for example, that other cultures were using the theorem we call Pythagorean. Yet, we still refer to it with this name. This is colonization and erasure. So then a response from Rochelle Gutierrez, who teaches socio-political perspectives on mathematics and science education at the University of Illinois, responded saying, yes, this attends to the culture's histories dimension of RM, and that's addressing Western Eurocentric maths. And we also want to attend to the living practice dimension, which is more about imagining a version that builds upon ancestral knowings, but does not yet exist.
Right, so basically anything that was invented in Western culture by white people, now we're going to make up mythic pre-white cultures. While white people were freezing to death in caves, Black Africans were creating pyramids, right? We're going to invent mythical cultures prior to the existence of when we know things were done, right? So Pythagoras may be the first person on record to have done what he did, but we know that people were using that thousands of years before, and primarily black people, right? Because the white race didn't evolve into human beings until well after the black people were. This is all the Black Athena stuff, right? This is all the 1970s garbage that people laughed at in the 70s that's now coming back as the sociology of mathematics. That's what we're up to. Whenever you see a adjective before a noun, right? Whenever you see sociological math, feminist biology, when you see those things, you know you're dealing with patented, unmitigated lies and bull.
It's time for some real education. The Jewish Bride is an oil painting by Rembrandt created sometime between the years 1665 and 1669. The painting gained its current name in the early 19th century when an Amsterdam art collector identified the subject as that of a Jewish father bestowing a necklace upon his daughter on her wedding day. This interpretation is no longer accepted, and the identity of the couple is uncertain. The ambiguity is heightened by the lack of anecdotal context, leaving only the central universal theme, that of a couple joined in love.
Well, even that's speculative. Look at the beautiful picture, first of all. Do we know if this is a father and a daughter? Do we know how do we know it's a husband and a wife? How do you know any of that stuff? Except for the hand on the breast, which might be, I suppose, a kind of giveaway. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, we don't know the permanence. As Katie said, we don't have enough anecdotal evidence from within the picture itself to decide one way or the other. But I want to go back to the picture and take a look at it, because Rembrandt van Rijn is a genius. And think about what you have to do to be a successful painter. You have to be able to create things on a flat plane that aren't flat. You have to be able to create light. How do you create light that infuses through a flat canvas the way light cascades through a window or cascades through a cloud? How do you do that? That is a completely multidimensional image that you have to create in a lifelike way on a flat canvas. The other thing you have to create besides light is texture. How do you create with flat paint on flat canvas, or oil for that oil paint? How do you create texturized images? Go a little bit further, Mike, in the image. That's the sleeve. We're going to look at that sleeve. That's the sleeve of the standing man, the father, the lover, the boyfriend, whatever it is. And you can see that's paint. That's simple, often gold with umber tinctures, right? It's oil paint, but look at how, even after 300 plus years, you have ripples, you have cloth, golden cloth moving. You could almost see the weave and how it was woven. You could almost always see the pattern there moving back and forth. If you step back off that for a second, back to the original picture, and you see from a distance what a relatively minor detail it might be, but notice how that sleeve, that simple sleeve, gives off both light and texture. The other thing you need is depth, right? Light, texture, and depth. Now look at the sleeve. When you focus almost exclusively on the sleeve, right, at a close-up, it's not clear that it's a sleeve. It could be a lot of different things, but now back up to the original picture, and what do you see? You see how that sleeve functions. And by the way, that sleeve, besides being a source, notice how it's a source of light in the painting. Notice how, but among the bride and the groom, the man and the woman, perhaps even more than the reds in her dress, that sleeve gives off almost a positive, radiant light. And because of that, notice what you see. Look beyond the sleeve. Look to the chest of the man who is sporting that sleeve, and you see depth. You see a great gap that's not there, right? One of the hardest things about painting is to do any one of those three things right: light, depth, or texture. Almost nobody did them better than Rembrandt. And go back to the middle picture we skipped. Take a look at the placement of hands here. I mean, what you've got, there's a whole Garden of Eden story there. There's a whole sin and redemption image there with the beautiful way those hands are placed. His hand on her breast, her hand on his hand, encouraging or warning. Her other hand covering her private area, right? There's a lot going on in this picture of deep, deep significance. Rembrandt was a genius, my friends.
All right, as always, you can follow us on Facebook and Parler. And if you have a question for us, just visit freedomproject.com/askduke. Now, we're going to wrap things up with our fun fact of the day. And since we're talking about that math and how it's racist, did you know that there is a link between pi and pizza? So if you multiply pi, 3.14, by the radius squared to find the area, and multiply area by height to find the volume, that means the volume of a pizza that has a nominal radius of z and a height of a will, of course, be pi times z times a. It's a whole pizza pie for all you Italians out there.
Pie and pizza. Can we have a pizza pie?
A pizza pie.
And that's going to do it for this show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, stay educated, my friends.